Welcome to another Howls and Growls breakdown. Today we're talking about Minnesota's big men and the synergy that we see from both Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert every single night. Now there can still be some spacing issues and occasionally they're just going to run into a matchup that's not overly conducive to a twin tower setup, but when Towns and Gobert are working together in offensive actions, it's a thing of beauty. The pair have now played 45 times together this season, and even with Mike Conley's well-known chemistry with Gobert, Towns has actually registered the most assists to Gobert by a pretty wide margin. They're up to 55 connections in those 45 games. Their most recent win over the Dallas Mavericks came without Luka and Kyrie, and there were a host of other Mavericks on the sidelines as well, so it wasn't anything to get too excited over. But watching Towns and Gobert dovetail again made me want to break it down a little further. So there's a couple of key ways that Towns gets Gobert the ball in rhythm, and it's worth pointing them out. We did see a lot of it in this latest win over Dallas, and it's pretty simple. It's all about Cat drawing Gobert's man toward him on double teams inside the arc. So when Towns curls into the post off this little cross screen, his gravity as a scorer is going to immediately pull Gobert's man toward him to double. And you notice how spaced Gobert is from the rim. That means he can curl through here and finish off that pass, which is a lot easier than trying to dump it down to him standing underneath the rim. We often think of Towns as the floor spacer in this partnership, but as long as Gobert is in the right positions, he can warp the defense with his spacing as well. You see it again here. So Gobert is out there setting this flare screen and spacing the floor with Towns in the post, and as soon as Gobert's man digs down here with that double, Gobert dives straight to the front of the rim, and Cat's timing on this pass is inch perfect. And that spacing can work in other areas of the floor as well. We see it here, Gobert is down there spacing on the baseline instead, but it's the same result. Gobert's man rotates over to help on Cat, Gobert rotates in behind him, and Towns nails him with a perfectly timed lob pass this time. This same logic applies when Towns is also spacing in different areas. We go back to tonight's win over Dallas, and now it's Towns in the corner instead of the post. Cat's man has to step in here because of Gobert's rolling gravity, so Conley skips it over to Towns, who is such a weapon in those corner pockets. He draws Gobert's man to him on the baseline drive. Gobert is perfectly spaced again, and Towns can whip that fancy over-the-head pass to his fellow big man. So that's how they do it with both players operating inside the arc. As long as they can marry up their spacing and their positioning, it's going to lead to really easy looks at the rim for Gobert. They've become much more adept at this as the season has wore on, but it's not always simple to jam two enormous humans inside the arc and have everything run smoothly. So one of the other ways they do it is just straight up run pick and roll with the two big men. While the previous possessions we saw were like something out of the 90s, this is more like something out of the future. We see here what Towns did last night when the screening defender in pick and roll is deep in drop coverage. He's just going to walk into a 3-point jumper, and that's the immediate concern for defenses when the two big men start running this action. That means Towns can manipulate the defense and start creating assists for Gobert. So as soon as the big steps up to take away the three, Gobert is going to pivot out of the screen and dive straight to the rim to get an easy bucket. So even the teams that deploy drop coverage as their preferred scheme have to shift their principles when the Wolves go to that 4-5 pick and roll, and then they still get punished for that change-up. Jaren Jackson Jr. wants to sit back in here and anchor the defense from the middle, but when he sees Towns coming off a ball screen, he gets up here quickly. Conley's in the corner distracting the low man, and Gobert's rolling out of the screen into all of this open space here with no help coming over to stop him when Towns hits him with that pass. So when they can't get the spacing right to hammer those inside the arc actions where Towns draws Gobert's man to him in a double team, flowing their offense into these big man screen and roll actions is a great way to get the same desired result in a different way. It's also just one of the coolest ways to lean into their jumbo-sized identity. There just isn't teams around running those pick and rolls, and that's why it works so often. It's confusing for defenses who are so used to guarding the same things night after night. And the last thing worth noting here is something we've talked about a ton on this channel, and it's Minnesota's flare actions. Again, as a reminder, it's 2 ball screens waiting here. Conley comes around this Towns screen, and then Gobert sets that flare screen while Towns drifts off it into space. In this example, he makes the 3, and as was the case before, that's what opens up his ability to playmate for Gobert in those Horns flare actions. So if Gobert's man switches and steps out to check Cat, Gobert just slips in behind the action and he's rolling to the rim again. It's the same principle as the pick and roll, but it's that little bit of extra sauce to get the whole thing set up. And with these, Towns likes to get downhill to really put the defender in a bind. You see him here, he drives until Gafford is stuck here in no man's land, and Gobert can drift in behind again, and that's what can really open up that lob dunk. So this is just really different in today's NBA, and it's really effective for this Timberwolves team. Again, there's going to be some issues sometimes with 2 legit centers in the lineup, and we've spoken about that previously, but there's no doubting the synergy between Towns and Gobert is really peaking right now, and it makes Minnesota such an interesting watch when they have it going. Thanks again for watching another Hows and Grows breakdown. Please subscribe for more.